Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank
All right.
you.
Excellent. You have written a book about James Brown. So that's pretty amazing, and would love to hear a bit more about it, how you got the good stuff, and tell us some of the good stuff,
Wow.
the outrageous stuff.
Well, he did nothing on a small level.
Right.
And the amazing thing about James Brown for me, you can't figure him out. I mean, he was a civil rights arbiter, and he was a Republican. He was a friend of Strom Thurmond's and Martin Luther King's. He had a little bit of a lot of things in him, and to try to figure it all out was a challenge. It was a huge challenge.
So your research, who did you talk to? How many people did you talk to?
Over 100 people, and people in his band, people that grew up with him in Augusta, Georgia, family members, people that worked with him, for him, friends, enemies, ex-girlfriends, a long list.
Yes.
One Southerner led me to another.
Yes.
It was a lot of Southerners.
Share one completely outrageous episode from his life.
Wow, one outrageous episode.
I know there were many.
Yeah, he, the thing that people talk about constantly was how when he was on a stage, he controlled an audience like nobody else ever could begin to. And of course, the story of Boston, the night that Martin Luther King was assassinated, Brown had a show booked that night for Boston. And there was a big discussion. Do we cancel the show? What happens if we cancel it? People will be upset. They'll be downtown without a ticket or with nowhere to go. All across America, there were reports of people in the streets, angry, fires going up, gunshots going off. So there was a huge debate in Boston, and they came up with this kind of bubblegum stitched together solution to have a show go on so that people wouldn't be wandering around the streets with no show to go to, but that it would also be broadcast on public TV so people could stay at home and see it. So that story and what really happened has been told other places. I feel like I got the real version and a deeper version, and one that paints Brown as both a hero, a peacemaker, and someone who made sure that he always got paid.
Huh. So what about some of the wilder things that have circulated through the press over the years?
Yeah.
What's the wildest that you learned about?
Well, I think that he was certainly a violent person, and he was certainly violent against people in his band and against women in his life. And that was no one story, I would say dozens of stories that I heard.
A trend.
Yeah, a trend. And the challenge for me is to find a number of stories without overwhelming the reader with too much information, or with trying to tell these stories in a way that doesn't justify, but that doesn't dehumanize him, that kind of, I just would say explains who he was, is what I tried to do.
Was it a hard book to write?
Well, I would say it was a great book, an easy book to research, or a challenging book, but a fun book to research. And when it comes to sitting down and writing, yeah, it's hard because he's James Brown, and he didn't do anything halfway, and he was there on my shoulder making sure that he let me know when I wasn't getting the full story.
Are you on tour right now for the book?
I had been. Now I just moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where his record label was, King Records. So I'm kind of just getting used to Cincinnati and waiting for the next book.
So what was the nuttiest thing that happened when you were on tour?
Wow. Well, I did a reading in Oxford, Mississippi. Amazing, one of the greatest bookstores I've ever been to, Square Books. And it was on one of the hottest nights of the summer. I really wanted to take the book to the South, went to New Orleans and Mississippi, and it was so hot. There was a sign, one of those whiteboard signs in the front of the store that said, tonight we've got air conditioning and R.J. Smith reading from the one. So
wow.
I was the opening act to air conditioning.
It's good to know what other people's priorities are. So I want to talk, I know that for a long time you lived in Los Angeles, and I want to get back to that in just a second, but what's in Cincinnati?
Oh, what's in Cincinnati? Some great architecture, a lot of pork. I'm a vegetarian, but people love their pork and chili there. Good music town, a good art town. I've got a good job, that's there for me, and You know, I'm from Detroit, so I'm from Detroit. So Cincinnati reminds me of Detroit with more happy people.
What are you doing there?
I work for Cincinnati Magazine.
Okay, that's a natural jump because you were a longtime editor at LA Magazine. Are you a native?
I'm from Detroit, and then I lived in New York, and I was in LA for 22, 23.
That makes you a native.
Thank you.
Right. So that sort of makes me wonder, when you live here a long time, I'm wondering if there are certain places that you found as literary inspirations, certain landmarks.
Well, my biggest landmark in Los Angeles and a creative inspiration is Watts Towers. It is such a beautiful illustration of what I like about it. Well, one of the things I like about it is LA is a place you can build this amazing, unique thing in your front yard, and no one around you will say, hey, we don't do it that way here. They may ignore you, they may gossip about you, whatever, but you can do it. You can write whatever kind of novel you want here. There isn't an orthodoxy the way there is in New York for writers. The other one I'd say is the Downtown Library.
Oh my gosh, what a great place that is. Yes.
I researched aspects of the book there. I did some writing there, and I got to know which microfiche machines work better than the others and so forth. And it's a beautiful, important building. And at a time when people are attacking public institutions, that's one that...
It's an extraordinary building. It really is. Books about Los Angeles. You have some that you love?
Sure. Well, Reiner Banham's books on the architecture of the region, of course. Mike Davis, important writer. You know, Philip K. Dick, who's not explicitly a Angelino exactly, but his imagination captures something of the region for me. So there's a few there. Attica Locke, I love her. I mean, she's a LA writer who's not always writing about LA,
right?
But she's one of my favorite writers.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much for joining us.
Alice, thank you.